The first time Saad Mehiri noticed it, nothing moved, nothing broke, nothing made sense, and that was exactly what made it terrifying. Because fear usually comes with noise, with chaos, with something you can point at and say, "That's wrong." But this felt like reality itself had shifted slightly, and only he could see it. It was a quiet afternoon when Saad returned home from university. The sun was bright, the streets were empty, and the heat pressed down on everything like a heavy blanket. It was the kind of day where nothing unusual ever happened. He unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and immediately felt it. Not fear, not yet, just discomfort. The house was silent, but not in a peaceful way. It felt like the silence was filled with something unseen, something that didn't belong. Saad paused for a moment in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room. Everything looked normal. The furniture was in place. The curtains barely moved. The faint hum of the ceiling fan echoed softly above. And yet, something was off. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and walked toward the living room. His footsteps sounded louder than usual, echoing slightly in the stillness. He told himself it was nothing, just tiredness, just his imagination. He dropped his bag on the sofa and sat down, leaning back as he exhaled slowly. For a moment, he closed his eyes. That's when he heard it. A knock. Soft, controlled, precise. His eyes opened instantly. The sound hadn't come from outside. It had come from inside the house. Saad remained still, his heart beginning to beat just a little faster. He listened carefully, waiting for it to happen again. For a few seconds, there was nothing, just silence. Then, another knock. This time, clearer, closer, coming from the direction of his parents' bedroom. A cold sensation crept up his spine. He stood up slowly, his movements careful, as if sudden motion might disturb whatever was causing the sound. The hallway ahead seemed longer than usual. The sunlight reaching through the windows didn't feel warm anymore. It felt distant, weak. With each step, the air felt heavier, thicker, as if something unseen was pressing down around him. He reached the bedroom door. It was slightly open. He was certain it had been closed. He stood there for a moment, staring at the narrow gap, his mind racing through possibilities. Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe the wind had moved it. He placed his hand on the door and pushed it gently. The room revealed itself slowly. At first glance, everything was normal. The bed was neatly made. The curtains hung still. The cupboard was closed. Nothing seemed out of place. But then his eyes shifted to the mirror, and everything changed. In the mirror's reflection, the cupboard door was open. But in reality, it was closed. Saad blinked. His brain struggled to process what he was seeing. He looked directly at the cupboard. Closed. Then back at the mirror. Open. His breathing became shallow. His body refused to move, as if some instinct deep within him had taken control, warning him not to go any further. And then the cupboard door creaked. Slowly, in real life, it began to open, exactly as it had appeared in the reflection. That was the moment everything inside him broke. Saad turned and ran. He didn't think. He didn't look back. He ran out of the room, out of the house, into the harsh brightness of the afternoon. The sunlight hit his face, but it didn't bring comfort. It didn't feel safe, because something had followed him out, not physically. But something had changed, and he could feel it. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every time Saad closed his eyes, he saw the mirror again. That impossible reflection. That slow movement of the cupboard. Around midnight, he finally sat up in bed, restless and tense. The room was quiet. Too quiet. He reached for his phone. The screen lit up, and his breath stopped. The camera was open. He hadn't opened it. It was facing behind him. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the image shifted slightly. Not the phone, not his hand. Something in the background. Saad turned around instantly. His room was empty. His room was empty, completely still. He looked back at the phone. The image was normal again, but the feeling remained, stronger than before. He wasn't alone. The next day, Saad tried to convince himself it was all in his head. But when he met his closest friend, Zayan Katak, he couldn't keep it to himself. Zayan listened carefully. At first, he smiled. Then he noticed something in Saad's face. Something that didn't look like imagination. Something that looked real. "Let's go back," Zayan said. "Right now." They returned in the afternoon. Bright sunlight filled the house. Everything looked harmless. Zayan walked in confidently, scanning the surroundings with calm curiosity. Saad followed behind, his steps slower. They entered the bedroom together. Everything was normal. The cupboard was closed. The mirror reflected the room perfectly. Zayan turned to Saad with a faint smile. "There's nothing here." Saad nodded slowly. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe fear had distorted his memory. "Maybe, Zayan," Saad whispered. "Don't move." Zayan froze. "What?" Saad pointed toward the mirror. Zayan turned, and in that moment his expression changed completely, because in the reflection they were not alone. A third figure stood behind them. Still, silent, watching. Zayan spun around instantly. Nothing. He looked back at the mirror. The figure was gone. Both of them stepped back at the same time. Neither spoke, because neither needed to. They both knew what they had seen, and it wasn't something they could explain. From that moment on, it didn't stop. It didn't fade. It didn't fade. It didn't go away. It followed them. The days after that mirror incident became unbearable. Saad and Zayan tried to carry on with normal life, but nothing felt normal anymore. Every corner of the house, every familiar shadow, seemed to shift when they weren't looking. Their friends noticed subtle changes in their behavior. Short temper, sleepless nights, unexplained anxiety. But no one could understand what haunted them. The fear was invisible, yet so heavy it clung to their every movement. One afternoon, Saad decided he needed a break. "Let's get out of the city," he suggested to Zayan. "We need to breathe, clear our heads." Zayan nodded silently, his eyes hollow from nights spent staring at shadows. They drove for hours, leaving behind streets, houses, and sunlight that no longer felt warm. Somewhere beyond the outskirts, they found a quiet farmhouse. On the surface, it looked safe. The sun lit the fields evenly. Birds chirped, and a faint breeze rustled the grass. They stepped inside together. The farmhouse was abandoned, dust coating the furniture, broken windows letting in scattered daylight. Zayan joked to break the tension. "Maybe this place is haunted just for fun." Saad didn't respond. His eyes stayed fixed on a wooden chair in the corner, oddly positioned. It faced the window, its back to them, yet somehow it didn't feel empty. "Zayan," Saad whispered, "do you feel it?" Zayan's confidence faltered. A chill crawled over him as the hair on the back of his neck prickled. Then they heard it, a soft voice calling from the direction of the chair. "Zayan." Both froze. "No one's there," Zayan said, though his voice was tense. "Listen," Saad hissed. The voice came again, this time clearer. "Zayan." The chair creaked slightly, as if someone had leaned back into it. Their instincts screamed to run, but curiosity held them still. Saad took a cautious step forward. The chair tilted slightly, then silence. They ran. Outside, the wind felt warmer. The fields were still. Birds chirped, mocking them with their normalcy. But the feeling followed, in their minds, in their hearts. Something had moved with them. Something was aware of them. They returned to the city, hoping the normal chaos of life would help. But their lives had changed. Saad noticed objects shifting in subtle ways. Zayan heard his name in empty hallways. Neither spoke of it at first, fearing disbelief. But one evening, Saad's cousin Miha Awan entered their lives, unknowingly joining the nightmare. Miha worked at a small clinic. She was calm, meticulous, logical, the type who dismissed the unusual as coincidence. But one afternoon, something happened that made even her doubt reality. A man appeared in the clinic, average height, calm demeanor, dressed plainly. But no one else noticed him. He walked past patients. Staff barely reacted. Mia approached, heart racing slightly. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man didn't respond, didn't blink. His eyes, empty yet aware, met hers. "I've been waiting," he said softly. Mia frowned, checking the reception list. His name wasn't there. He smiled, a slow, unnatural smile. Then he vanished. Completely. The moment she turned to check another patient, he was gone. Moments later, a stretcher arrived carrying a man, lifeless. The resemblance was uncanny. He had arrived dead, yet she had seen him alive moments before. Shaken, Miha confided in Saad and Zayan. They met in Saad's apartment. The sunlight filled the room, yet it didn't feel safe. Saad recounted the mirror. Zayan, the farmhouse. Meher described the lifeless patient who had appeared alive. The pieces clicked together. Whatever followed, Saad and Zayan could reach across space, across time, and manipulate perception. Fear became strategy. They set rules. No one would be alone. Doors remained open. Mirrors were covered, but the entity adapted. Names whispered from empty rooms. Shadows moved in broad daylight. And then it started speaking directly to them. Fahan, Zayan heard one morning, clear and precise. His hands froze on the steering wheel as he drove to meet Saad. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," Saad replied. "It knows our names now." That day, they decided to confront it. The three of them went to the old farmhouse, armed with nothing but flashlights and courage. The sun was high. Nothing could be hiding in shadows. Yet the house felt alive, aware. Every step they took made the floorboards groan in unnatural harmony. The chair awaited them in the corner, facing the window. Saad approached. The air thickened. He whispered, "We know you're here. Show yourself." The room remained still for seconds that stretched endlessly. Then the chair tipped over violently, though no one touched it. A whisper echoed, multiple voices overlapping. "You shouldn't have seen." Lights flickered, as if the sun itself faltered. The wall seemed to breathe. Zayan stepped back, nearly tripping over a loose plank. Miha clutched Saad's arm. A figure slowly emerged from the corner, human in shape but distorted, edges flickering like static. Its eyes were empty voids, yet full of recognition. It knew them, every secret, every fear. Saad's courage faltered. "Why are you here?" he shouted. The figure tilted its head. "Because you looked." It whispered in a voice that carried across the daylight, reaching deep into their minds. "Because you watched." The room shifted again. Time seemed unstable. They were suddenly outside, the farmhouse intact, as if nothing had happened. Yet the imprint of fear remained. That night, they gathered in Zayan's apartment. Every reflective surface was covered. Yet in their minds, they saw it. In dreams, in memories, in the corners of their vision, while awake. It was relentless, not bound by darkness, by time, by distance. Weeks passed. They attempted normal life, school, work, commuting, but the entity's presence was undeniable. Doors would creak, names whispered. And one morning Miha received a phone alert she didn't recognize, a live video feed from inside Saad's apartment, showing nothing. Yet she felt the weight of someone watching her. They realized then that it no longer needed mirrors, houses, or physical spaces. It followed perception. It existed in awareness, in attention. Wherever they looked, wherever they thought, it could manifest. The three agreed. They couldn't fight it. They couldn't hide. They had only one choice: observe, survive, endure. Months passed. The intensity fluctuated, but never disappeared. They learned patterns, subtle rules. They could anticipate moments of direct contact and prepare mentally. But the fear never left. It became part of their lives, as constant as breathing. And then, one bright afternoon, it spoke again, this time in unison. Their names, their thoughts, their memories, all laid bare. And then silence, complete, almost peaceful. For the first time, they understood. It wasn't evil. It wasn't malicious. It was aware. It existed because they had perceived it. From that day, life continued. Not normal, not safe, but alive. Every shadow, every reflection, every sound carried meaning, and they carried knowledge. Some presences do not wait for night. They do not require darkness. They exist in awareness. They exist in daylight. And sometimes, the most terrifying things are the ones you can see.